Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd love to know what you think. Every comment helps me make the next story better. Subscribe to stay tuned. I found it on a Thursday evening, just sitting there on the kitchen counter like a coiled snake, waiting. Jenny was out at her book club, or what she called book club. I'd noticed they never actually discussed books anymore, but that's another story. I came home around 6:30, loosened my tie, and headed to the kitchen to start dinner. That's when I saw the yellow legal pad. Her handwriting. I recognized it immediately. The careful loops and curves she'd perfected in high school. But it was the header that stopped me cold. Marriage, pros and cons. I should have walked away. Respected her privacy. But who writes a pros and cons list about their marriage and leaves it on the kitchen counter? That's not privacy. That's a declaration. The pros section had 3 items. 3. In 6 years of marriage, she'd managed to find exactly 3 positive things to say about us. Financially stable. Loyal. That was it. The third line was empty, like she tried to think of something else and given up. The cons section filled the rest of the page. 17 items. I counted them twice. Takes me for granted. No spontaneity anymore. Doesn't make me feel desired. We fell into routine. Lost the spark. He's content with mediocrity. Doesn't push me to grow. Sex is scheduled/boring. Never surprises me anymore. Stop trying to impress me. Acts like roommate, not husband. I feel invisible. Wonder what else is out there. Is this all there is? Feel trapped. Andrew used to make me feel alive. Deserve to feel passion again. Andrew. There it was. Confirmation of what I'd suspected for months. Her high school ex-boyfriend, who'd conveniently moved back to Denver 4 months ago. The one she'd been mentioning casually over dinner. The one whose divorce was almost final. I stood there for probably 10 minutes, just staring at that list. My first instinct was anger. Then hurt. Then something else. Clarity. If someone needs a pros and cons list to decide whether to stay married, the decision's already made. The list is just permission. I grabbed a pen from the drawer. At the bottom of her cons section, in my handwriting, I wrote, "New con. Single now. Enjoy your freedom." Then I went upstairs and packed a bag. Enough for a few days. I grabbed my laptop, my charger, the essentials. When I came back down, I placed my wedding ring carefully on top of the list. Right over the word trapped. I texted my friend Greg. "Can I crash at your place? I'll explain when I get there." His reply came instantly. "Doors open." Before I left, I pulled out my phone and sent Jenny a single text. "Found your list. Thought I'd help you resolve it. Papers coming soon." Then I walked out of our house, got in my car, and drove to Capitol Hill. The freedom hit me somewhere around Spear Boulevard. Not happiness exactly, just the absence of weight. Greg met me at his apartment door with a beer and a knowing look. He didn't ask questions until I was sitting on his couch, bag at my feet. "So," he said, "what happened?" I told him about the list. Showed him the photo I'd taken before leaving. His eyebrows climbed higher with every line he read. "Andrew used to make me feel alive?" He whistled low. "Man, that's not a therapy exercise. That's an exit strategy." "That's what I figured." "And you just left? Didn't wait for her to come home? Didn't demand an explanation?" I took a long drink. "What's to explain?" She laid it out pretty clearly. 17 reasons she's unhappy, 3 reasons she's staying. And those 3 reasons are basically that I'm a reliable meal ticket. Greg nodded slowly. "So what's the plan?" "Call a divorce attorney. Have an appointment Monday morning." "You're not even going to try to work it out?" I looked at him. "Work what out?" "She's been emotionally cheating for months. The list wasn't the problem. It was just the evidence." My phone started buzzing around 9:47. Text after text, each one revealing a little more panic. "What are you talking about? What list?" "David, this isn't funny. Where are you? You're seriously overreacting. It was just a therapy exercise. My therapist told me to write down my feelings. You can't just leave like this. We need to talk." Greg read them over my shoulder. Therapy exercise. Classic. Right? Most therapy exercises don't include comparing your husband unfavorably to your ex-boyfriend. The texts kept coming. I didn't respond to any of them. By 11, she'd moved from anger to desperation. "I'm sorry. Please come home. We can work this out." I set my phone face down on the coffee table and finished my beer. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls. The voicemails were a journey through the 5 stages of grief, except she'd skipped acceptance and was stuck on bargaining. I went to work like normal. Told my sister Sarah what happened over coffee. She laughed. Actually laughed. About damn time, she said. I've been waiting for you to wake up. You knew? David, everyone knew. She's been pulling away for months. The way she'd check her phone constantly. How she stopped touching you in public. The girls' brunches every single weekend. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? She had a point. Around noon, Jenny called from a coffee shop. Third Culture Coffee in Stapleton. I could hear the espresso machine in the background. I answered and put her on speaker so Greg could hear. We need to talk about last night, she said. I think your list said everything that needed to be said. It was just a therapy exercise. You're taking it way too seriously. Interesting, I said. Most therapy exercises don't include comparing your husband unfavorably to your ex-boyfriend. Brief pause. Andrew is just a friend, right? The friend who used to make you feel alive. Very platonic. You went through my private thoughts. You left them on the kitchen counter. That's not private. That's a declaration. So one list and you're just done? 6 years means nothing? I leaned back in my chair. The list didn't end the marriage. It just revealed what you'd already decided. She tried a different tactic. Maybe if you'd paid attention to me, I wouldn't feel this way. Interesting theory. So it's my fault you've been emotionally cheating? I haven't been cheating. You wrote that Andrew makes you feel alive. You wrote that you feel trapped. You wrote that you deserve passion again. What exactly do you call that? I call it being honest about my feelings. No, you call it being honest when you think I won't find it. When I do find it, you call it a therapy exercise. I could hear her breathing hard through the phone. So that's it. You're not even going to try? You made a list. I'm just honoring your conclusions. This is insane. What's insane is staying married to someone who has to weigh the pros and cons. You deserve to feel passion again, just not on my dime. I hung up before she could respond. Greg handed me another beer, even though it was barely noon. That was ice cold, man. Was it wrong? No. It was perfect. She expected you to beg. That night, I went back to the house. Jenny was at her girls' night, which gave me a few hours. I still had my key. The place felt different already. Less like home, more like a museum. I wasn't there to pack more clothes. I was there for evidence. Jenny's iPad was on the bedside table, synced to her phone. She'd never logged out. I opened the Messages app, and there it was. Months of conversation with Andrew Sutton. I didn't read all of it. Didn't need to. But I took screenshots of the important parts. You deserve someone who appreciates how amazing you are. David's just so comfortable. Like an old sweater. Life's too short for comfortable. Remember us? That was passion. I think about that sometimes. We had something real. The messages got progressively more intimate. Planning coffee dates. Meeting for lunch. Discussing his new apartment in Lower Highlands. Then I found the smoking gun from 3 days ago. When can I see you? Really see you. Not just coffee. Soon. I'm working on something. Working on what? Figuring out how to tell David I need space. A break. Smart. Test the waters first. Exactly. If he fights for me, I'll know. If he doesn't, well. And if he doesn't, then I'll know I was right. And maybe you and I can finally see where this goes. I sent the screenshots to my email. Sent copies to the divorce attorney. Sent one to my sister. Left everything else exactly as I'd found it. Saturday morning, Jenny showed up at Greg's building. Someone let her in. She buzzed the apartment. I'm coming down, I told her through the intercom. We can talk, but not here. We met at the house an hour later. She'd clearly prepared. Hair and makeup done. Wearing my favorite dress. She'd even brought coffee from Pablo's in Southlands, the place we used to go on weekends. I know you're hurt, she said as we sat in the living room. And I'm sorry. I waited. I've been dealing with some unprocessed trauma from my parents' divorce, she continued. I projected my fears onto our relationship. The list was me working through anxiety, not reality. I love you, and I want to fight for us. The therapy speak was thick. Every sentence sounded rehearsed. When did you reconnect with Andrew? I asked. I don't know. A few months ago. He reached out on Facebook. And how many times have you seen him since then? Just a couple coffees. As friends. How many? I don't know. 4? 5 maybe. In 4 months, you've had 5 coffee dates with your ex-boyfriend. They weren't dates. We were just catching up. I pulled out my phone. Showed her the screenshots. Her face went white. You went through my messages? You left your iPad unlocked. I protected my interests. She stared at the screen. I watched her process what I'd found. The careful makeup couldn't hide the panic in her eyes. Those messages look worse than they are, she tried. Do they? Because they look like you've been planning to leave me for weeks. They look like you were going to ask for a break so you could test drive your high school boyfriend. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain the part where you discussed seeing where things go with Andrew after getting space from me. She started crying. Not the genuine tears of someone who's hurt. The strategic kind. The kind designed to regain control. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to talk to Andrew. There it is, I said. So this is my fault. I didn't say that. You just did. You said if I'd paid more attention, you wouldn't have emotionally cheated. That's blame shifting. I felt lonely. When did you tell me you felt lonely? Specifically. She opened her mouth. Closed it. I shouldn't have to spell it out. But you could spell it out to Andrew. You gave him 4 months of emotional intimacy you denied your husband. You told him things you never told me. So don't pretend this is about me not paying attention. You didn't want my attention. You wanted his. The strategic crying intensified. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. What pressure? To be a wife? To honor the commitment you made? Everything is just so complicated right now. I stood up. No, it's really not. You know what's complicated? Trying to rebuild trust after your spouse plans an exit strategy. You know what's simple? Deciding whether you want to be married or not. It's not that black and white. Actually, it is. You either want to be married to me or you don't. There's no list that changes those fundamental facts. She switched tactics again. I'll cut off all contact with Andrew. I'll stop seeing those friends. We can go to couples counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. Here's what I understand, I said, walking toward the window. You only want to fix this because your plan didn't work. If I'd begged and promised to change, you'd have taken your break. You'd have tested things with Andrew. When I called your bluff, suddenly you want to work on us. That's not love. That's panic at losing your backup plan. That's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you coming to me with your concerns. Fair would have been you working on our marriage instead of planning to leave it. Fair would have been not reducing 6 years to financially stable and loyal while listing 17 reasons you're miserable. She tried to grab my hands. I pulled away. Please don't do this. Can't we just talk about it? We are talking about it. You want space. I'm giving you space. You want time to think. I'm giving you all the time you need. What more is there to discuss? I don't want you to hate me. I don't hate you. But I respect myself too much to sit around waiting for you to decide if I'm worth staying married to. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe this version of me, the one with boundaries, was new to both of us. So that's it. She whispered. You're not even going to fight? I am fighting. I'm fighting for my self-respect. If you need to leave to figure out if you want to be here, then you should go. But don't mistake my self-respect for lack of love. She left crying. The texts started again within 30 minutes. I didn't respond to any of them. By Sunday, word had spread. My sister called my parents. My parents invited me to their weekly dinner in Cherry Creek. Jenny didn't show up, which made things easier. I arrived around 5. The house smelled like my mother's pot roast. Comfort food. She knew. David, my mother said, pulling me into a hug that lasted longer than usual. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. Sarah told us everything. My father appeared from the living room, still in his weekend flannel. He wasn't a hugger, but he gripped my shoulder hard enough that I felt it. Son. That one word carried everything. Disappointment in Jenny. Pride in me. Sadness for what was lost. Support for what came next. We sat at the dining table, the same one I'd eaten at growing up. Sarah was already there, wine in hand. She raised her glass when I walked in. To self-respect, she said. My mother shot her a look, but didn't argue. Over dinner, I told them the whole story. The list. The messages with Andrew. Jenny's manipulation attempts. My father ate in silence, jaw working. My mother asked questions. Sarah provided commentary. I never trusted her, my father finally said, setting down his fork. Something always felt off. Robert, my mother warned. No, Pat. He needs to hear this. I kept my mouth shut because you were happy, David. Or I thought you were. But that girl was always looking over her shoulder. Always wondering if she could do better. You can't build a marriage on that. I wish you'd said something, I told him. Would you have listened? Same thing Sarah had said. They were right. I wouldn't have. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. If someone needs a list to stay married, they've already left. You did the right thing, sweetheart. It takes strength to walk away. Doesn't feel strong, I admitted. Feels like failure. Failure would have been staying with someone who saw you as a safety net, Sarah said. You're not her backup plan. You're not anyone's consolation prize. We talked until almost midnight. My father told me I could stay with him if I wanted. I declined. Greg's couch was fine. Besides, I needed the independence. Needed to prove to myself I could handle this. As I was leaving, my mother pulled me aside. Jenny's mother called me yesterday. What did she say? That you were being unreasonable. That Jenny made a mistake, and you're not giving her a chance to fix it. My mother's expression hardened. I told Linda that her daughter made a choice, not a mistake. Choices have consequences. She didn't appreciate that. Thanks, Mom. You deserve better than being someone's pros and cons list, David. You deserve to be someone's only choice. I drove back to Greg's thinking about that. The only choice. That's all anyone wants, really. Not to be weighed against alternatives. Not to be the safe option while someone fantasizes about the exciting one. Jenny had made me an option. I'd made myself the only choice. My choice. Monday morning, I met with the divorce attorney. Her office was in downtown Denver, glass and steel. Professional. Her name was Catherine Morris. 50-something, sharp eyes, firm handshake. Mr. Harper, she said, gesturing to a chair. Tell me why you're here. I told her about the list. Showed her the screenshots of the messages. Laid out the timeline. She took notes, asked questions, nodded occasionally. How long were you married? 6 years. Children? No. Shared assets. The house. 2 cars. Standard bank accounts. Nothing complicated. She leaned back in her chair. This should be straightforward. Colorado is a no-fault state, so we don't need to prove adultery. But these messages help establish that reconciliation isn't viable. Have you attempted marriage counseling? She's asked for it. I've declined. Why? I thought about how to explain it. Because I don't trust her motivations. She only wants counseling now that her backup plan fell through. If I'd reacted the way she expected, if I'd begged and pleaded, she'd have taken her break. Would have explored things with Andrew. Now that I called her bluff, she's scrambling. I'm not interested in being someone's second choice. Catherine smiled slightly. You'd be surprised how rare that clarity is. Most people who sit in that chair are still hoping for reconciliation. Still making excuses. You're not. Should I be? Not for me to say. But in my experience, marriages that require this much convincing to stay and usually aren't worth saving. She made a calculated decision. You're making one too. Nothing wrong with that. We discussed timelines. Asset division. The house would need to be sold. We could split the proceeds. Cars were separate. Bank accounts easy enough to divide. No kids meant no custody issues. No major debt meant no complicated negotiations. If she contests nothing, we could have this finalized in about 3 months, Catherine said. 3 months. 90 days. That's all it took to legally undo 6 years. One more thing, Catherine said as I stood to leave. She'll likely try to negotiate. Ask for more time. Suggest trial separations. Couples therapy. You need to be clear about what you want. I want the divorce. Then stick to that. Don't let her talk you into delays. Don't let guilt make you waver. You're making a business decision at this point. Treat it like one. I left her office feeling strangely calm. Business decision. That's exactly what it was. Jenny had evaluated our marriage like a business proposition and found it wanting. I was simply closing the books. By Tuesday, Jenny was vague posting on Instagram. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Choosing myself. Healing. Growth. With prayer hands and sparkle emojis. Her friends commented their support. They didn't know the full story yet. At work, I kept my head down. Focused on projects. Stayed busy. But word had gotten out somehow. Denver's a small town when it comes to social circles. My colleague Mark stopped by my desk Tuesday afternoon. We'd worked together for 3 years. Grabbed lunch occasionally. He knew Jenny from company events. Hey man, he said, leaning against my cubicle wall. I heard. I'm sorry. News travels fast. Jenny posted something cryptic. My wife follows her. Put 2 and 2 together. He paused. For what it's worth, I always thought you were too good for her. I looked up from my computer. Yeah? She had this way of talking about you at parties. Like you were a good roommate, not a husband. Always mentioning things you didn't do. Places you didn't take her. It felt off. My wife noticed it too. Why didn't anyone say anything? Mark shrugged. Not our place, I guess. Plus, you seemed happy. Or at least content. Figured maybe that was just how your marriage worked. Content. That word again. The same word Jenny had used in her messages to Andrew. Comfortable. Safe. Content. All the words that sound positive until someone uses them as insults. I was content, I admitted. Thought that was enough. Turns out she wanted fireworks every day. Fireworks burn out, Mark said. Content lasts. She'll figure that out eventually. Probably too late, but she'll figure it out. After he left, I thought about that conversation. How many people had noticed Jenny's dissatisfaction before I did? How many had seen the signs I'd ignored? How many dinner parties had I attended, oblivious, while Jenny subtly poisoned our marriage in casual conversation? The thought didn't make me angry, just sad. Sad for the time wasted. Sad for the version of me that had tried so hard to make someone happy who was determined not to be. Wednesday, one of those friends called me. Kelly. She'd been at all the girls' brunches. I want you to know we didn't know about Andrew, she said, voice tight with embarrassment. She told us she was just unhappy, thinking about herself. We never would have encouraged her if we'd known. Appreciate you calling, I said. But she's an adult who made her own choices. Thursday, Jenny left a voicemail. Her voice was broken, raw. Andrew won't return my calls. He said this is too much drama. He blocked me on everything. You were right. He didn't want me. He just wanted the ego boost. I didn't call back. Told Greg instead, over beers at his place. She's realizing she traded something real for a fantasy. You feel bad for her? Little bit. But not enough to go back. Greg leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Can I tell you something? As your friend? Sure. I'm proud of you, man. I've known you since college. Remember sophomore year? That girl Rebecca who cheated on you at that party? I nodded. I'd almost forgotten about Rebecca. You took her back. Made excuses for her. She cheated again 3 months later. You were devastated. Made me promise to never let you do that again. He looked at me seriously. You kept that promise to yourself this time. This feels different than Rebecca. It is different. You're different. 20-year-old David thought love meant forgiveness without boundaries. 34-year-old David knows better. You can love someone and still walk away. That's growth. We sat in silence for a moment. The TV played some basketball game neither of us was watching. You think I'm being too harsh? I asked. No. I think you're being exactly harsh enough. She didn't make one mistake, David. She made a series of calculated choices over months. She built an emotional relationship with another man. She planned an exit strategy. She wrote a list of everything wrong with you and left it where you'd find it. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. Her therapist probably told her the list was healthy. Maybe. But her therapist didn't tell her to include Andrew's name. Didn't tell her to discuss her marriage problems with her ex. Didn't tell her to plan a break so she could test drive him. That was all Jenny. He was right. I knew he was right. What if she really changes? I asked. What if in 6 months, a year, she's actually different? Greg shrugged. Then she'll be different for someone else. Not your problem. You can't wait around to see if someone becomes worthy of you. That's backwards. You need someone who's already worthy. Someone who doesn't need a list to figure out if you're enough. Later that night, alone on his couch, I thought about what he'd said. About being enough. About not waiting for someone to decide you're worth keeping. I'd spent 6 years trying to be enough for Jenny. Trying to anticipate her needs. Trying to make her happy. And in the end, it didn't matter. She'd still looked elsewhere. Still made her list. Still reduced me to 3 shallow pros against 17 cutting cons. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo of the list one more time. Then I deleted it. I didn't need it anymore. I knew what it said. Knew what it meant. Keeping it would just be picking at a wound. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. Friday, 1 week after finding the list, Jenny showed up at my office. The receptionist called me. I agreed to lunch at Snooze near Union Station. She'd quit her friend group. Cut off Andrew. Started new therapy. Been reading marriage books. I know what I did was wrong, she said over eggs and coffee. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking anyway. Why do you want to save the marriage? Because I love you. Because I realized what I had. Or because Andrew didn't want you and you're scared of being alone? She teared up. That's not fair. Isn't it? Let me ask you something. If Andrew had wanted you, would you be here right now? Long pause. Too long. I don't know. Maybe not. At least you're honest now. But I am here. That should count. It counts for something. Just not enough. She pleaded, asked what she could do, what it would take, how she could prove she'd changed. You can't prove you've changed in a week, I said. Real change takes months, years. And I don't owe you the time to watch you try. You broke something that can't be unbroken. So you're saying there's no chance? I'm saying you killed something. You can't resurrect it through force of will. 2 weeks later, her therapist requested a joint session. I agreed after checking with my attorney. The office was in Capitol Hill. Professional. Neutral territory. Dr. Reynolds tried to facilitate communication. Jenny talked about her unmet needs. I presented my timeline and evidence. David, how do you feel about Jennifer's efforts to reconcile? The therapist asked. I think she's doing the work she should have done before looking outside the marriage. I respect the effort, but my trust is gone. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Jenny sobbed into a tissue. I ruined everything for nothing. Andrew didn't even want me. And now I've lost you too. I traded gold for garbage. I felt sympathy, but not enough to stay. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, standing. I hope you learn from this. But that journey doesn't include me. David, wait. Please. I'm sorry, Jen. I really am. But I'm sorrier for what you did than what I'm doing. I walked out. 3 weeks after finding the list, the divorce papers were served. Uncontested. No kids. Simple asset division. The house went up for sale. Jenny moved to an apartment in the Highlands. I stayed at Greg's. The realtor came by on a Wednesday morning. Professional woman named Patricia. She walked through each room, taking notes, making suggestions. You'll want to depersonalize, she said. Remove family photos. Paint over the accent wall in the bedroom. Make it neutral so buyers can imagine themselves here. Jenny and I met at the house that weekend to start packing. First time we'd been alone together in 2 weeks. The air felt thick with things unsaid. We worked in silence mostly. She took the living room. I took the bedroom. We'd agreed on what belonged to who. No fighting over possessions. Just the quiet dissolution of a shared life. I found our wedding album in the closet. Leather-bound. Expensive. Her mother had insisted on it. I opened to a random page. Jenny in her white dress, me in my tux, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. You can keep that, Jenny said from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come up. Don't want it. She shook her head. Too painful. I closed the album. You want painful? Try finding out your wife has been planning to leave you for her ex-boyfriend. That's not fair. I never actually left. Only because I left first. She leaned against the doorframe. Do you think if I'd never made that list, we'd still be together? Probably. But that doesn't mean we'd be happy. I was happy sometimes. Sometimes isn't enough, Jenny. Sometimes is what you settle for when you're too scared to admit you want out. She wiped her eyes. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I just don't trust you. And I can't be married to someone I don't trust. We finished packing in silence. When we were done, we stood in the empty living room. The space echoed. All the furniture was gone. Just bare walls and carpet dents where the couch used to be. This is really it, she said. Yeah, it really is. She showed up during a buyer's walkthrough. This is really happening. Yes, it is. Do you hate me? No. I feel sorry for you. That's worse. Maybe, but it's honest. We stood outside by our cars. The Colorado sun was setting, painting everything gold. It felt cinematic, but sad. You were everything I said on that list, she said quietly. Stable, loyal, safe. Those were the pros. I was an idiot for thinking those were small things. Yes, you were. Andrew made me feel desired, chosen, special, but it was all surface. You made me feel secure. That's deeper, more real. But I called it boring. Shame you figured that out after throwing it away. If I could take it back. But you can't. That's the point. She asked if I'd ever really forgive her. I told her I already had. But forgiveness wasn't reconciliation. Forgiveness was for me. It let me move on. Reconciliation would be for her. That's very mature of you, she said. Yeah, well, one of us had to grow up. We didn't hug. No dramatic moment. Just acknowledgement. She drove away. I watched her go and felt mostly relief. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Jenny had moved to Boulder for a fresh start. Apparently dating someone casually. I felt nothing about it. 6 months after finding the list, I had my own place in Wash Park. Small but mine. I'd started running again. Picked up hobbies I'd neglected. Been on a few dates, but nothing serious. One morning, running around Washington Park, I saw Jenny with someone new. She saw me, stiffened. I waved politely and kept running. Didn't look back. She looked different, like she was trying too hard. Maybe she'd work out with the new guy. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, not my concern. That evening, I poured myself whiskey and looked at the Denver skyline from my apartment window. I thought about the list, about what I'd learned. People show you who they are. Believe them the first time. If someone needs to weigh pros and cons to stay married, they've already decided. The cons weren't about me. They were about her wanting permission to leave. I gave her what she wanted, just not how she wanted it. She wanted drama, negotiation, a fight to win. I gave her clarity instead. Funny thing about self-respect. Once you demand it from others, you start giving it to yourself. The list didn't end my marriage. It showed me the marriage had already ended. I keep the list in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of betrayal, as a reminder of self-respect. The day I stopped fighting to be someone's choice and became my own. Financially stable, loyal. Damn right I am. And I deserve someone who sees those as foundations, not consolation prizes. Best decision I never knew I'd have to make. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.